Well, it's good to be able to gather together this morning, wherever you're coming from. And I'll be honest, it's an honor and a privilege to share with you during a difficult and unprecedented time. And it was so fun this morning just to see you all in the chat rooms and the comments. And for those of you who've sent messages this week, we continue to pray for you and we continue to be in your corner. And before I start today, I want to share a couple of things with you. One is that next week I've asked my friend and our founding pastor, Carrie Newhoff, to come and share with us in this series of hope. And so looking forward to hearing from Carrie next week. And then in addition to that, I wanted you to know about Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Easter is around the corner, and we're looking forward to that weekend, and we will be hosting a Good Friday services online as well. Part of those Good Friday services will be communion. So I wanted to let you know that now. So over the next 2 weeks, if you're out getting groceries or someone's getting groceries for you, I wanted you to know, hey, if you could pick up some grape juice and some crackers, that's going to be helpful to you. And I wanted to let you know, if you've got kids, we are going to be putting out a resource at our connexuschurch.com/family site for you to have conversation about communion with your kids if they have questions. We are looking forward to Easter weekend. It has been a season of change, hasn't it? I mean, it just feels like the change has been so rapid. And I thought I'd start this morning by just sharing with you a few of the changes in my own house, a few of the changes that I've experienced in my own life. So school has radically changed for my kids. This is Gavin and this is Carter. Apparently the attire for school has changed dramatically, but these are my boys in the midst of school figuring it out. Another change in our home is that our living room has turned into a studio because we're looking for more opportunities to connect with you online midweek. We've got some great stuff planned, and so we've been setting up a studio. I've been learning a lot about it since I'm doing it myself. We've got a studio in our living room, and if you know where I live, please don't come rob me. And then the other thing that has changed is how we get together. This is me with a group of people getting together on a Zoom call, and for me, this has become a part of life, hasn't it? On screens often, to connect with people. And another change, if you were with us last week, is that I have to share my green chair, which is really my spot, but my wife Leslie has been taking it over. And there's been change in our lives in many, many areas and in many, many ways. And we've been in the midst of this series that we hadn't really anticipated about hope. And why have we been talking about hope? We've been talking about hope because you need hope. You need hope. You need hope like you need oxygen. You need hope like you need food. You need hope like you need shelter. It's part of us as human beings. We need hope. You need hope in your life as much as you need the air that you breathe. And some of you are coming today and you know that you need hope because of the kind of week that you've had. I know that for some of you, you've lost work, and for some of you, you've had to let people go, which is incredibly challenging as well and emotional. For some of you, you've been affected by COVID-19. Maybe you've contracted it and you're home and you're isolated at home alone. Or maybe you have a loved one who's in hospital. Or maybe you've lost someone this past week. And you're coming here clinging to hope, looking for hope. We need hope. And that's what we want to talk about today. And I want to start by saying this because I think it's important for me to say it. We will get through this. We will get through this. I'm confident that we will. I'm confident that God will be with us and we will move through to the other side of this. As we practice self-isolation, as we practice social distancing or physical distancing, the truth is that there is light at the other end of this, that God is with us. And the other thing that I know is the truth is this is not something that's unprecedented. Humans have experienced pandemics and this sort of thing before. In fact, 500 years ago, there was a Reformed theologian named Martin Luther, really the father in some ways of the church as we are today, one of the fathers. And 500 years ago, when he was in Wittenberg, Germany, he experienced the bubonic plague, and actually had the opportunity to get out of Wittenberg and decided to stay. And part of the reason he decided to stay was they don't have the hospital care system like we have, and so he, in a sense, was caring for people. He was a hospital himself. But he talks about what the experience was like and what the measures were that he took in a document that he wrote about how he felt as a Christian he should respond to this plague that he was facing. And I want to share with you a little bit of what he said. He says this: I shall ask God mercifully to protect us. So he's praying for protection. And then he says, I shall fumigate. I'm not sure we're all fumigating, but we are washing our hands. Help purify the air, administer medicine, and take it. He's taking the appropriate precautions. And then he talks about self-isolation and social distancing. He says this. He said, I shall avoid places and persons where my presence is not needed in order not to become contaminated and thus perchance inflict and pollute others and so cause their death as a result of my negligence. What he's really saying is, hey, the loving thing to do is to self-isolate and social distance as much as I can. He says, if God should wish to take me, he will surely find me, and I have done what he has expected of me. And so I am not responsible for either my own death or the death of others. Then he says this, if my neighbor needs me, however, I shall not avoid place or person, but I will go freely as stated above. He sees the importance of continuing to be for people in the midst of what was happening. I know that for many of you, in a safe way, have chosen, hey, I'm going to get groceries for someone who can't go out and get them. I'm going to call somebody and check in on them. Well, for us, it looks different. We continue to choose to be for people. And then he says this, see this as such a God-fearing faith, because it is neither brash nor foolhardy and does not tempt God. And as we see that quote from Martin Luther, we're reminded of what it means to act in wisdom and to act in love and to be sure that we're caring for the people around us by socially isolating. 500 years ago, Martin Luther got through something like this, and we will get through this. We will get through to the other side. But there's something else that I want to talk about today as well, is you will be disappointed and you will be discouraged and you will feel doubt. That's a reality of what we're facing. That's going to happen. Some of you today are disappointed. A career is over. A dream is gone. Something is crumbling that you hadn't anticipated. You're discouraged. You're doubtful. Some of you are just sad and suffering because maybe you've lost a loved one. You're discouraged because you're just tired of being afraid. You're tired of being isolated. You're discouraged because your kids are driving you crazy and you've been stuck in the house way too long. We will be disappointed. We will be discouraged, and we will doubt. Scripture is very clear that suffering is a part of our lives. It's a part of our fallen world. The truth is that the world isn't as it should be. And so we're going to be disappointed, we're going to be discouraged, and we're going to doubt. And so today, I want to share with you 3 things about hope. In the face of discouragement, in the face of doubt, in the face of disappointment, I want to share with you 3 things about hope. 3 things about hope and about what it is. The first one is this: your plans will change and your faith will waver. That in the midst of the season that we're in, as your pastor, whether I've been your pastor for a day or a week or for a long time, I want you to know that your plans are going to change. And for many of you, your plans have changed. Whether it's the family vacation you were going to take, or the retirement that you had planned, or the business that you were building, your plans are changing in the immediate. And your faith will waver from time to time. That your faith will not stay steady all the time. It will drop and it will go up, and you will feel your faith waver at times. Some of you have people you know who are sick, people you know who you've lost, and for you, your faith is wavering even today. Your plans will change and your faith will waver. But I want you to know this today, but your living hope will remain steadfast. Your living hope will remain steadfast. We're going to be looking at some verses from Hebrews 13 today, and one of the verses that's been so dear to me in this season is Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Well, plans change. Well, faith wavers. He remains the same. See, I think when it comes to our faith, sometimes what we do is we equate how faithful we feel with how much approval we get from God. If my faith is doing really well, then things are going to work out in my life and God's approving me. And when my faith wavers and it goes low, hey, maybe God isn't showing up because I don't have enough faith. And we hear things like that, just trust and just have enough faith and you just have to believe more. And the truth is that God's love for you remains the exact same, whether your faith feels low or whether you feel like you have a lot of faith. His love isn't contingent on how much faith you have. His power isn't contingent on how much faith you have. His control isn't contingent on how much faith you have. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. When I was a teenager, I used to make extra money working with my dad. My dad worked for an engineering firm, and he would often have to survey an entire town prior to putting in a brand new water system and a brand new sewage system. And he would survey, and that would make all the measurements for the town. Once we had it all measured out, we would take it back to the office, and someone would draw up all the plans. And whenever we showed up at a new site, a new location, the first thing that we would do is we would look for what they call a benchmark. Now, the benchmark was where we would start, and it would always be something that just couldn't move. It would be a flagpole. It would be a cement post right in the ground. Something that we knew could never move. And then I would stand with my measuring stick, hold it on that benchmark, and you've seen surveyors with those things they say, I'm going to take a shot, and they take sort of, I don't know what it is, a measurement, a photo. They write something in their book, but they're measuring where that benchmark is. And then every other measurement that we would make would be based on that benchmark. In some places, you actually can see benchmarks where they put them right in a rock and said, hey, this is a geological benchmark. And the truth is that as I held that rod on that benchmark, every other measurement would be taken from that benchmark. And then what would happen was we would go back to the office and someone would draw the blueprint, the plan. And the first thing they would put on that plan is the benchmark. Because the truth is, they could change the plan all they wanted. They could move the plan all around. They could adjust the plan in any way, but they could never adjust the benchmark. Because the benchmark was going to remain. The benchmark was going to stay, and it was never going to move. The psalmist says, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness, God. When your faith wavers and your plans change, your living hope, if you trust in Jesus today, remains steadfast. One of the things we've talked about is hope is what you have, but faith is what you build. The hope is what you have. It doesn't change, and the faith is what you build. Jesus talks in Matthew 14, he tells this parable, this story that teaches. And it talks about two gentlemen who build two houses. And one builds house on a rock, and one builds their house on the sand. And the truth is that when it comes to your faith, when it comes to the life you're building, when it comes to the dreams that you have, when you build them on that hope, no matter what happens, the hope never changes. The parable says the storms come and the winds come and the rain comes. And it comes on both houses. We all experience suffering. But the difference is that one house is built on a living hope. And one house is built on sand. If you call yourself a follower of Jesus today, your house that's built on a rock, you might have lost some shutters. You might have lost some shingles this week. There might be some rebuilding that has to happen when it comes to your faith, when it comes to your dreams, when it comes to what's happening in your life. But your hope remains steadfast. But if you're watching this morning and you haven't chosen to trust in Jesus, then your life isn't built on that hope. And the question is, what is it built on? Is it built on your own plans? Is it built on your own dreams? Is it built on your own effort? Because in a season like this, when the storms come and the waves come, wouldn't you want a hope that lasts? Wouldn't you want a hope that's steadfast? Wouldn't you want a hope that never changes? Hope is what we have as followers of Jesus, and faith is what you build. The other thing I want you to know about hope today, as I share 3 things about hope, is your hope is eternal. That your hope is eternal. The Apostle Paul talks about this all the time. He says things like, to live is Christ, but to die is gain. To live on earth is to live for Jesus, but to die is even better because I'll be in eternity with him. He says things like, we're citizens, as followers of Jesus, we're citizens of heaven. That this is a temporary home. That we're here for a short time. And for some of you today, maybe you've lost a loved one, or for you, you're susceptible to COVID-19 and you feel like, man, what happens if I die? And the truth is that if you're a follower of Jesus, your hope is eternal. That this unprecedented time in our lives, whatever kind of week you've had, in the light of eternity, when you look back from eternity, this moment in time will look so small to you. The writer of Hebrews in chapter 13 says this. He says, for this world is not our permanent home. We're looking forward to a home yet to come. We're looking forward to where we really belong. We're looking forward to where we permanently belong with Jesus in eternity. It says, therefore, let us offer through Jesus a continual sacrifice of praise to God, proclaiming our allegiance to his name. See, we know if we choose to follow Jesus that we will have eternal life. And how do we know this? Because he died and he rose again. Because of the resurrection. Because of all of the witnesses who saw it. Where he said, I'm going to die for the things that you've done wrong, for your sin, the gap between you and God, and I'm going to rise again. And he didn't just say it, he did it. In fact, Jesus describes himself this way, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. It's pretty clear. He said, everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Now, I don't think God is just a God who resurrects our bodies, who will be with in eternity, but we believe that God is a God of resurrection, a God of new days, and a God of new dreams. Because some of you have lost dreams. For some of you, you feel like a dream has died, what you've built has disappeared. For you, the thing that the days you were looking ahead to are now gone. For you, you didn't think this was what was going to happen to your finances, to your business, to your career, to your life. And you need to be reminded of the fact that we believe in a God of resurrection and of new days and of new dreams. Now, we're going to grieve and we're going to be disappointed in the loss of loved ones and the loss of careers and the loss of finances, but we believe in a God of resurrection. I want to tell you today, there will be a new day. There will be a new dream. Because our hope is eternal. Our God is a God of resurrection. And that God wants to bring new days and new callings and new dreams to your life. I also want to remind you of something we've been talking about, that hope is meant to be shared. That your hope is meant to be shared. It's not meant to be kept a secret. It's not meant to be kept to yourself, but it's meant to be shared with the people around you. In Hebrews 13, the writer says this. He says, and don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. These are the sacrifices that please God. If you call yourself a follower of Jesus this morning, I want to remind you that the world needs your hope. The world needs your hope. Never before have our cities, Has our country, has our world needed the hope of Jesus like it needs it today? The hope of a living God, a steadfast God who never changes. Something that you can anchor your life to that isn't going to just hold you in this world today, but is going to hold you in the world tomorrow. A God of resurrection, a God of love, a God of power, a God who we can lean into in some of our most difficult times. In some ways, we're back to a question that I asked a couple weeks ago. Is the only hope you have the hope you've built yourself? Is the only hope you have the hope you've built yourself? For those of you who chose to trust in Jesus, he's walking with you today. No matter how you feel, no matter how discouraged, no matter how disappointed, he remains as the benchmark, as the anchor, as the God of refuge and of strength. And you can lean into him when your faith wavers, and you can lean into him when you're discouraged, and you can lean into him when your plans change. But if you don't know who Jesus is, and you don't have that hope, maybe today you want it. Maybe today's the day you decide, man, the only hope I have is what I've built myself. It's my own effort. It's my own dreams. I don't have anything that's steadfast. I don't have anything in my life that's yesterday, today, and forever. I don't have anything that I can anchor my hope to. I don't have any idea about what's going to happen in eternity. I don't have a plan for any of that, Jeff. I'm not sure what to do. I need that hope. And if you need that hope, why not make today the day? Today's the day, wherever you are, where you say, hey, I'm going to choose to follow Jesus. I'm going to choose to hold on to the hope that never changes. I'm going to choose to hold on to the hope that never changes. I'm done trying to control it all. I'm done trying to build my own hope. I'm done trying to do all of this in this temporary world. But I want to hold on to the hope that lives. I want to hold on to the hope that's steadfast. I want to hold on to the hope that never changes. I mean, Easter's around the corner, and that's what it's all about. You know, there's a gap between us and God in this fallen world. It's clear that our world is pretty messed up and fallen. But Jesus came as a human being, and he identifies with your suffering. God in human form, identifying with your suffering. He knows what it is to suffer. He knows what it is to lose. He knows what it is to have difficult times. But at the end of the day, he walked through those times and died and rose again so that you could have forgiveness and so that you could have a relationship with him, so that you could have a hope that lives. And so if you're watching today, and you want to begin that relationship with Jesus, a relationship that's not just for now, but it continues right into eternity. And you want a hope that's steadfast in the midst of the rain and the wind and the storm. I'm going to give you an opportunity to begin that relationship today. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pray at the end of this message. And I'm going to pray for those who are disappointed and those who are discouraged. But I'm also going to pray and give you an opportunity to choose to follow Jesus for the very first time. In the midst of a time of total turmoil, what if you made the best decision you could ever make? To choose a hope that lives no matter what. I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to pray with us. And then if you pray today and you choose to follow Jesus, I don't want you to feel like, well, now I've done this in my living room and like nobody really cares, or I've done this alone and nobody really cares. So I'm actually going to put a phone number on the screen. And if you've made that decision today, I want you to just text me. I'm going to respond to you today. I'm going to respond to that number personally. Just text and let us know, hey, this is a decision that I've made today. We're going to leave it on the screen. I want you to pray with me. God, I come to you today, and I choose to follow you with my life. I choose you as my living hope. I'm done trying to build my own hope, and I want to begin a relationship with you. God, I want forgiveness of my sins. I want you to make me new. I want you to walk alongside me, and I want a relationship with you, not just now, but into eternity, and I commit my life to you. And if you prayed that prayer, I would love to hear from you today to just help you along the way. And I just want to take a moment and just pray for all of us today. God, I lift everyone up to you who's discouraged, who's disappointed, who's suffering, who's sad, who's lost somebody, who's lost a dream. Remind us of our steadfast hope. Remind us of our hope in you. Remind us that we know that we will get through this because of who you are. That we can cling to you as our refuge and our anchor. None of this is determined by how much faith we have. None of the outcomes are determined by our faith. None of the outcomes are determined by our emotions. None of the outcomes in our lives are determined by any of those things, but that we can lean into your steadfast love that never changes, that drives out fear, that is with us every moment of the day. The God that was here long before us, and the God that's here with us now in this moment, and the God who is with us into the future, the God of our refuge and our strength. And we pray this in your name. Amen.